Yo, what is up everyone? Bliss Mode here, back with another video. Back with the second video on this, I guess we could call it a comeback tour. Coming in hot with the new videos. Before we jump into the video, I just wanted to take a moment and announce a new contest. If you follow me on Instagram or here on YouTube, you're going to be entered for a chance to win a print. And I'll probably throw in some stickers in there as well. But I don't know if you've noticed, but that YouTube subscriber count is not that high. So if you're not already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and you have a pretty good chance of winning a free print, and probably some other little goodies I'll throw in there as well. I'll probably get that sent out within the next week or so. But for this video, I just figured we could have a little talk about style. Now, if you watch any YouTube video on this topic of style, one thing that you're going to find that keeps popping up over and over again is this debate of sorts, and it basically boils down to, is your style created or is it something that evolves naturally? And I have some thoughts on this, but before I get into that, the main thing I want to talk about when it comes to style is you need to be a fan of your craft. And what I mean by this, and this can apply to any craft, but I'm going to take it from the drawing aspect. I don't just mean a fan of the content that is produced by your craft. For an example, you may like a show and you might like the way the show is drawn. But what I mean is you need to be a fan of the craft itself, the technical aspects, the foundations, what the artist is actually doing. And to do this, what you need to be able to do, and you kind of have to train yourself for this, is you need to be able to learn to separate style from technical ability. And basically what I mean by that is the content, the concepts that you might be drawing aren't necessarily the things that are going to get you to that point where I think you can begin to think about, or your style will evolve. What you really need to be focusing on is your technical ability. And one thing I always encourage is to be a fan of your craft. So I get a lot of artists, a lot of people who want to learn how to draw and get better at drawing. And one thing I'm always asking is, okay, how many drawings are you looking at per day? A lot of people say they want to draw and they want to take it seriously, but I can guarantee you're going to burn out so quick if you are not able to sit down and just look at people's drawings. And, you know, we're so constantly being bombarded by entertainment now. You know, you got constantly new TV shows, podcasts, you know, TikToks, whatever. So much entertainment at your fingertips that when I ask someone, how many drawings are you looking at per day, they assume I'm talking about that. But what I'm really talking about is like a single illustration or a single set of sketches, and you're doing nothing else but looking at the art and enjoying it for long periods of time, multiple times a day even. And when I sort of separate it from that category, you know, they don't always say it, but, you know, it's kind of obvious they're not really doing that. And that's fine. You know, not everyone really wants to be or needs to be, you know, going super hardcore into trying to be the best artist as possible. I definitely understand hobbies, but what I'm talking about is trying to be the best artist that you can possibly be. And that means you need to be a fan of the craft. And when you do this, what you're going to notice is you're going to start separating the style from the technical ability. So you're going to see a bunch of artists that you may not necessarily like. You may not necessarily enjoy their style, but you're going to appreciate the level that they produce their art at. You're going to appreciate their technical ability of the craft. And it's really important that you get into this habit as soon as possible. Every image that you see, you should have, quote unquote, a judgment call. You know, you can set aside the content of what it is and have your own judgment call for your own personal taste and style. But you also need to be making a judgment call on the technical ability, meaning how good is the perspective in this piece? How good are the proportions in this piece? and you're going to start separating it by these little elements that make up the technical craft. And if you feel like something is a little off, say the perspective feels off, you need to also be able to think to yourself, okay, was this a conscious choice on the artist's point, or was this just, the artist doesn't really understand perspective and it kind of came out this way? And it's not really important to make that judgment to, kind of cast a shadow on that artist, or to, that's not the point. The point is you need to be constantly making these discernments about the art that you're seeing. And what this does is it allows you to be self-critical in your own art. And this is super important. I feel like my style is pretty defined. Of course, I have things to work on, but that's the one thing that I have down is my style is consistent. You can see a drawing of mine, and I made it essentially. And there are there are of course things that I do most of the time that kind of make up that style. But those decisions have to be based from a foundational knowledge. You hear this in sports, you hear it in anything, any craft, any, endeavor that you're undertaking, you have to learn the basics. And that doesn't mean that that is a hard set of rules, but that does mean that you need to be aware of those rules. There's a difference between not being able to reproduce a foundational rule and making the choice not to reproduce a foundational rule. And before you get into that debate of, well, or should you be trying to create your style? Is your style going to appear naturally? It doesn't really matter if you're not thinking in this manner. For me personally, and of course this is just my personal story. You may find something different, but for me personally, when my style kind of started to take shape and kind of got to this point where all of my art kind of became easily recognizable as being my art, it was kind of a combination of created and naturally evolving. The naturally evolving part was based off the fact that I was concentrating on the technical ability aspect, and I still concentrate on that to this day. And once that technical ability carried my skill point to a certain level, I was able to reproduce certain decisions that I made while having this skill set. And so it's not really a did I create my style? Did my style evolve? It's both, obviously. But you can't get to the point where that style is going to start to break free and become easily recognizable as yours if you're not focusing on these foundations. And this goes for any craft, I believe. Any top level anything is going to, whether it's innate or they worked on it, they're going to have these basics down. And that's really what you should be focusing on, I believe, because you're going to always enjoy the things you enjoy. Your style is going to come out regardless. I was saying separate the technical from the style. And that's kind of because you're always going to have your own style. You're always going to like things, not like things. That all comes, from childhood, from your influences. So to worry about that beyond just being honest with yourself about what you think is cool, it's not really going to get you to that point. You need to be focusing on your craft, and you need to think of it as a craft, honestly. And in my view, that is going to get you to that point where you can say to yourself, okay, I can start making these style decisions because I can layer them on top of a strong foundational knowledge. And then once you get to that point, the game kind of switches a little bit because you're not really worried about trying to create a style. You really shouldn't be worried about it, I guess, in the beginning. But it's, you get to that point and that's not a focus at all. It's not entering your mind. And so what begins to happen is no longer are you worried about creating a style or evolving a style. What essentially happens is you are adding and subtracting from this style. You are, even to this day, I'm still spending hours out of my day just looking at art people I enjoy, people I've never heard of. I'm looking at their technical ability, I'm looking at their content, and even to this day I'm trying to add things to my style and subtract things that maybe and you kind of have to take risks sometimes to improve, especially when your style gets really set in, because you almost it can be a handicap sometimes because you're so set in your style that the thing that might take it to the next level in your own eyes is something that might, go against a rule set per se, I guess, that you gave for yourself. And so once you get to this point, you're still working on the technical ability, but now you need to start adding things and subtracting things, adding elements, adding, maybe I'm going to try this proportions, maybe I'm going to try this new angle, or I'm going to try a new color scheme, and you're always going to be, your style is going to maintain because the majority of your style is not going to be in flux. It's just going to be these elements that you're trying and subtracting, and over time your style might change, but you'll be able to look through your fans, your whatever people that you want to see your art will be able to get a clear understanding of your path, your story. They're going to still be able to look at your past work and easily recognize it as yours, which can be important, especially if you want to be an independent artist. This is another thing that I guess we could talk about is if you want to work for companies and for clients, your style needs to be adaptable. And that goes back to having a strong set of foundational knowledge. Because if a client comes to you and they want you to work on their game, their comic character, their whatever it is, you need to be able to adapt to the style. For me, I am constantly working on my own style. And so I'm constantly playing this addition subtraction game that I was mentioning. But because I am also constantly delving into art and, like I said, being a fan of the craft, if a client comes to me with a request, then I am easily able to, kind of set my style aside, pull out my bag of basics and, acquiesce to what the client needs. And this is very important, probably for my own style too, honestly, just to be able to go back and, okay, maybe I missed something back in the basics that my style is not carrying forward. So, most of my time is spent working on my own style, but, every now and then I'll sit down and do a realistic portrait, a life drawing, anything. You should be working on every aspect of your craft, and you should be ready to adapt, especially if you want to be getting paid by studios, by clients, and even if you want to be more of an independent artist making your own illustrations. It's so important to do this. This is such a huge topic. I can imagine I'm going to have multiple videos on this. This is definitely just the way that I'm looking at it now. I'm pretty confident about some of the things I said, but of course, everyone's going to have their own ideas and topics. You should, seek out as much advice from as many different sources as you can. For me, the main thing is if you're drawing and you love to draw, you're going to find these things out on your own. And you're also going to find out if you actually do like drawing, because when you're drawing at this amount, at this rate, it's work. It's not only, you can't do this at this rate as a hobby because it's mentally draining, and you will find out really quick if you have the passion. And so if you have that passion, you're going to learn everything basically that I said on your own, or you're going to have your own take on it. But, I'm so glad that I have this platform to be able to talk to you guys about this stuff. Really grateful for you guys for, listening to me. If you are a fan of the art, thank you so much. Like I'm always saying, big plans coming up in the future. Thank you for watching the video. If you have any questions about style, about drawing, art, life, whatever, be sure to drop a comment. Please subscribe. Check out the Instagram. I have a TikTok I started if you're into that sort of thing, I guess. But yeah, guys, thanks again, and I will catch you guys on the next one.